All right, welcome everyone. This is a really exciting talk. I feel like we've had a lot of conversations before this, and also just an incredible wealth of knowledge that it's just thrilling to be able to share these wonderful ladies. And really just sort of dive into this topic. We'll begin the talk with some of the what is Iboga versus Ibogaine versus other substances, but also really we've got representatives from many different cultures discussing what it's like to not only work with Iboga themselves, but also be part of the traditions, the Bwiti traditions in Africa, and other areas around the world, and also what it's like to be female holding this medicine. For those that are aware of Iboga, it doesn't have a masculine or feminine nature, but it does have a powerful nature, and both masculine and feminine have their ways of expressing their power. So this is going to be a really beautiful talk. My name is Kimberly Adams. I welcome everybody. I'm sure there'll be folks popping in and out. This is being recorded, so not to worry if you get distracted or there's a baby crying or there's something happening. Just know that this will be recorded and put on YouTube, so it'll be shared. I am going it should be set up so that those that are talking are the ones that are being seen, but just know that if you would like to not be on camera, go ahead and turn your camera off. So welcome to this beautiful session of Women on Iboga, Women of Iboga, Women of Medicine. I'm going to open up the space to welcome those that are the panelists to introduce themselves, give us a little bit of understanding of what brings them to this medicine and what they're going to bring to the world as a whole. So Audrey, would you like to start just to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kim. Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. So I'm Audrey, and I come from a Bwiti lineage from my mother's side, and our branch is called Fang. So my mother was a Nima. So a Nima is a Bwiti healer, or you could say it's like a shaman if you're not familiar with a Nima. My grandmother was also a Nima, and I descend from that lineage of female Bwiti healers. I'm also the co-founder of Bwiti Roots, which is a non-profit that we've created to support the community back in Gabon. And our aim is to protect Bwiti culture, to plant Iboga, and to make sure that this knowledge and wisdom is passed on to the future generation, and that the community can continue on practicing Bwiti. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Audrey. Michelle, would you like to say hello? As you're entering, if you wouldn't mind muting yourselves. Thank you so much. There's going to be potentially 40 participants, so I would love to be able to go around the whole room and have everybody introduce themselves, but we're just starting off with the panelists right now. We'll have some time later to address them in some questions. Michelle, would you like to
Yeah,
share a little bit
hi.
about your wonderful self?
Yeah, my name is Michelle. I'm a co-owner of Soul Reflections, which is a Iboga community, and we also still do retreats, of course. I've been a nurse for about 18 years and now retired from that, and have been working with this beautiful medicine, learning from and working with this beautiful medicine for 13, almost around 13 years now. So yeah, so I just am super excited to have this panel of ladies. I think I was thinking about this morning, and just being able to share this knowledge from these two women, and how important it is for people to know that there are some really incredible women leaders in the Iboga community.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and truly, without Michelle, this panel would not have been put together. So this is really exciting. So thank you so much for all of the management and connections that you've made. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Kim.
Absolutely. Maud, would you like to check in and say hello and where you also forgot to say where you guys are coming from so people know where we are all calling in from and introduce yourself.
Canada.
Hello, yeah,
Sorry,
sorry.
Maud.
Go for it, Maud.
Hello, everybody. So nice to see you. I'm from Norway, but I live in Senegal in West Africa. I'm also a healer. I'm educated in herbs and yeah, a lot of different modalities. But I've been working with Iboga for 14 years, and I have never been like very interested in plant medicine. Everything was an accident that I actually did it, and it changed my whole life. And I went straight to Gabon, and since that I have been working with it. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Maud. And Jessica, also our co-organizer in this beautiful panel of wonderful ladies. Welcome, Jessica. If you would like to share, she comes from Women on Psychedelics, which is probably why a lot of you are here, and the beautiful community she brings. If you'd like to pop off your mute and share a little bit about yourself, Jessica.
Sure. Hi everybody. My name is Jess. I'm originally from Brazil, but I am based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, where I can legally work with psilocybin truffles. And I've been doing that for the past years. During the pandemic time, we co-founded Women on Psychedelics. So it has been 5 years now that this baby project was born. And our mission has always been to provide free, accessible education for women in the psychedelic space. And recently this year, I realized that Iboga was one of the plant medicines that we have very little knowledge and literally no content about. So got to connect with Kin and all these amazing women and actually bring this event to inform and educate all of you. So I'm also here today to learn from them. And yeah, hopefully this will be an enriching event. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. And yeah, you already answered my question that I was going to ask you, but in terms of the awareness that you see within the community, do you feel like folks in the Women on Psychedelics have the awareness of what Iboga is versus Ibogaine, and is that much of a conversation piece? No?
No, I don't think there is enough accurate information out there. And also, like most of our community is based in North America and in the US, but I also do see that here in Europe as well, there's not a lot of information about Ibogaine and Iboga and how to do, how to be with the medicine in ethical ways. So this is why I was really excited to also be here and yeah, bring this conversation. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a little nebulous to a degree. So and because of that, I mean we're coming from all over. I can't even see everybody's little picture or name anymore. There's so many folks in here already. But we're coming from all these different backgrounds, and whether you come from understanding the Western models or some of the medicine models that might be to your culture, traditional to your culture, we have such a interesting array of plant medicines, whether it be psychedelic or just medicinal. But Michelle, if you could pop in and share, could you just give us a little bit of history and also understanding of the chemical differences, and also some of the experiential differences between Iboga and Ibogaine, and maybe some of the other plant medicines other folks might be familiar with in this space.
So I'll start with what the difference is between Ibogaine and Iboga. I think most people, if they've heard of it, they've heard of Ibogaine. Ibogaine is one molecule pulled from the Iboga plant. Iboga is the whole plant. And so it's typically the root. And the whole plant itself, I believe, has over 100 alkaloids. So it's a very, very complex plant. And even Ibogaine on its own, chemically speaking, is a very complex molecule. So yeah, so for the reason why we know more about Ibogaine is likely because it is one molecule. It's easy to study, right? So we can study what that one molecule does. When you do studies on a whole plant, it gets more complicated. So they don't really like to do it. Also, you can't make money off a plant. It's why natural medicines aren't used the same way that pharmaceuticals are, right? Because you can't patent it. But also, Ibogaine is used mostly, and generally speaking, for addiction, where Iboga tends to be more used for its spiritual purposes as well as addiction. So traditionally speaking, Iboga is used for spiritual purposes. It's used for initiation. It's used for self-discovery. It's used to speak to the jungle. But Ibogaine tends to be heavily for addiction, although it can be a spiritual, or it is a spiritual experience. It tends to be shorter than an Iboga experience. So maybe it's 12 hours versus 12 to 24 versus like 24 to 36. And in some ways it's more intense because Ibogaine is in Iboga, but probably not in such a high dose because there are other alkaloids there, right? So it tends to be a little bit more of an intense experience in some ways. And it tends to be a little bit less visual, although, we can talk a lot about Iboga. The experience of Iboga may or may not be visual anyway. It depends on what you need. And sometimes Iboga doesn't give you visions, which can be confusing for people when they experience the medicine. They're like, why aren't I seeing anything? So, yeah, so that's kind of like the basic main differences between the two. Iboga and Ibogaine are just very different from any other plant medicine, whether it be plant, animal, synthetic. It just is a totally different experience. My experience is that it's more personal. It's more grounding. It's more interested in you working on you rather than, you working on other things. So, and it loves the mind. It loves to teach us about our mind and how we're using it. I think more than any other plant or medicine out there. So those are kind of like the key differences that I see typically.
Thank you. Fantastic. And anybody on the panel want to share a little bit of the differences, or maybe to help folks understand, especially if you're coming from maybe experiencing serotonergic substances, maybe some of what the physical experience might be like, as well as even though it might not be visual, sometimes it is. Yeah, the many folks, serotonergic means DMT, ayahuasca, psilocybin, those that are a little bit more dreamlike in their experience, and also their like the visions that people will have. So anybody on the panel want to share a little bit about maybe either personal experience or things that you see your clients reporting about the actual visual experience and what the physical body experiences during the long time that you're spending with Iboga. Audrey, would you be able to share a little bit about that? Or is the little one fussing?
No, it's fine. So I mean, I am not familiar with Ibogaine. We only work with Iboga. So for us, Iboga is not a plant. It's not a it is a medicine, but it's a spirit. It's a highly intelligent, super conscious entity. And we work with this spirit the same way we would work with ancestors and other conscious spirits. So but as I said, I am not familiar at all with Ibogaine. I just know what I've read about it, you know. But for us, you know, we feel that separating the molecule from the plant, there's maybe a question as to is the spirit still there, you know? And that spirit has to be respected because it can do a lot for us, but it must be honored and respected. So maybe that's a question that someone who has more experience with Ibogaine versus Iboga can answer.
Of course, of course. Yeah, uh, would somebody be open to talking about the physical manifestation in the body? Just in general of Iboga. Many people who are here probably have had or heard a lot about what the psilocybin experience is, maybe understood ketamine, which is a different class entirely. There might be folks that have experienced ayahuasca. There seems to be a funny little connection. Ayahuasca and the Iboga like whisper to each other and like, hey, you should go over there at times. So just maybe Michelle, from the sort of medical sort of awareness of what happens to the physical body, because often in the serotonergic, you're kind of slowing down, calming down, dream state. Although you're alert, just to share some of what the physical experience is like. So yeah.
Yeah. So for Iboga, and Ibogaine and Iboga will be fairly similar in how they feel in the body. There can be like a heaviness, a buzzing, especially when Iboga first comes on. People report feeling like a little bit sleepy, tingling in their hands, feet, heaviness. And then of course, Iboga is not a true hallucinogenic. So what it is an aneurogenic. So which means to dream and to create, which I love. I think that's so appropriate for Iboga. And I agree with Audrey, you know, and we talk about this a lot when we talk to people about what Iboga is. And first and foremost, it is a spirit. And it's teaching us something. So it will detox our body. You know, it will, sometimes that means purging, sometimes that means throwing up, sweating, crying, going to the bathroom a lot. It can show up in many ways that way. And the most intense period is during the first sort of 8 to 12 hours after you receive Iboga, and then it kind of shifts into more introspection, more awareness. For me, in my experience, Iboga is grounding. It teaches us about being human. It's teaching us about living in this world. It's teaching us about our mind and how we use it and the stories that we create, and how we are attached to things and how those things affect our life in positive or negative ways. So Iboga has a very great sense of humor. It's funny. And I think for Ibogaine, I think it depends on how people, how the Ibogaine is pulled from the plant and how much respect is given during that time. And it depends on uh, the people using it. So the people serving Ibogaine and in what way they're doing it. I think Ibogaine is incredibly useful. I think, but I think there are, you know, some learning. I think there's like a big learning curve that's going to happen in the Ibogaine spaces and using the plants in a different way. So I think in the Ibogaine spaces, it's too fast. I think there's this idea that Ibogaine cures all and immediately. And I think that's not what the human experience is, and it's never going to be that way. And Iboga is a long-acting medicine for a reason. Iboga just doesn't, like, when we take Iboga, we're not just taking Iboga for the weekend or a week retreat and then we're done. Iboga stays with us. It will continue to speak with us for long periods of time, for as long as we want it to, as long as we're willing to listen. And it is about bringing forward a transformation in your life. That takes time. That takes integration. So So there's a lot that needs to happen in this space, I think, and that's why the tradition is so important and why we go back to that tradition in the sense of the tradition teaches us to work with the plant. You know, the tradition in Gabon and you know, it's showing us they've been working with plant for thousands of years, so they have some really deep and important lessons to teach us. Maud, did you want to add to that?
I just want to say that since Iboga is such a powerful mind medicine, it loves our mind, you know. I think it's such a good medicine for women because we are a lot in our mind and we have all these things going on and we are talking to ourselves, talking ourselves down. And it's hard for us to see what we are doing. I'm sorry for my voice today. And it's hard for us as women to see what we are doing to ourselves. And we have a lot of inner dialogue, you know, about ourselves, pushing us down. And Iboga is such an amazing medicine to show us what we are doing, you know, to make us understand that how we have to shift our way of thinking about ourselves, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, Maud, you have such an interesting combination of skills, both traditional medicine from Norway, right? That's your what is how do you say your official title as a medicine woman there?
Here, we don't have this. I don't have any. I don't call myself anything. I'm a high practitioner. It's a German education. I have a lot of different educations. I don't call myself anything, and I'm living in Senegal, who's completely different compares to Norway. Where I cannot talk about the whole of Africa, but I can talk about Senegal, where plant medicine, like herbal healing and healing modalities, is on the same level as a doctor. They are actually under the health department in Senegal. And so it's used in a very different way. Here in Norway, it's really just in the beginning. It's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's valuable also to hear from, because you're a licensed MFT as well. So you've got the psychological side, which, as Michelle said, you know, this medicine is very it is very mind oriented. And I was just sharing with someone the other day that it's interesting because one of the things that often happens for people, one is a mind purge where sometimes people experience it as a life review, but there's also flashes of images that come and it's like stuff that's just stuck in your brain that it's kicking out. And I haven't experienced that with any other medicine. I've been quite the psychonaut in my days, and it's a very different experience. Alongside that, go ahead.
No, you also have, like, first time when you take Iboga, I have seen a lot of it, that it can be a really, really hard night for you because you're going into really dark places, dark thoughts, these things, because the medicine is just showing you how you are thinking, how you are dealing with yourself, and it amplifies, you know, so you really are going to understand what you are doing to yourself. That's the really powerful, I think it's one of the most powerful sides of Iboga, really showing you what you're doing and how you're talking to yourself. Because literally, you would actually never talk to anybody the way you talk to yourself and put yourself down. And Iboga is a master of showing you this. And I love that with the medicine. It's like, so, yeah.
Yeah, in the chat, those that are listening in, please share if you've had experiences with Iboga or Ibogaine, and just you know, just so we have an awareness, but also something I wanted to mention about the way that it interacts with your mind. It causes auditory hallucinations, which I've only had a few times in other experiences, but they're not hallucinations necessarily. And thank goodness, I've sat with Michelle and Patrick many times. And many times, 5 times. Still lots to learn. But thankfully they told me beforehand, you're gonna hear things. We're not really over here whispering about you, because that's what the experience is often like, but it's really just externalizing the things that you're saying to yourself. You think you hear things when you're under the influence of the medicine, and you're like, why on earth would they say those things about me over there? When the hallucinations that I experienced, that wasn't even them. That they're like, they were over there. But I had located it as them whispering about. But those are the things that I often say to myself, and that's some of the education around that seems like the gentleness of the spirit of the medicine that shares this. Hey, do you really want this? It's not helpful. And it's beautiful that it shares that education. In terms of some of the other plants that also work in conjunction and are contraindicated, and just for awareness of those that are listening in that are really new, if some folks can share a little bit about some of the plants that are used in Gabon as support and amplifiers, even if you don't need to use names necessarily, because I know some of these traditions are very secret, but just some of the ways that these medicines are amplified, but Iboga specifically is amplified and supported by some other plants. And sometimes like the use of cannabis, it does amplify, but it can, if you have a little bit of a battle going on, if you're working with a cannabis addiction or high use of cannabis, having it in your system is maybe a little bit contraindicated. So if we could talk a little bit about safety so that people who are listening understand a little bit more about this is helpful, this is not. So when you're thinking about maybe bringing yourself to this medicine. Maybe we can start with either Maud or Audrey saying some of the supportive plants that are.
Audrey, go ahead.
Yeah. So I know there's a lot of fear surrounding the topic of Iboga, but speaking from a Bwiti perspective, we'll tell you in Gabon that Iboga does not kill, it's the other things that kill. And in our village, we do ceremonies almost every weekend. And during the ceremonies, everybody takes part in the rituals. So the very, very, very old people, very, very sick people, children, babies, this one has taken part in many ceremonies. And we even give Iboga to the dogs and the cats, and no one drops dead, So it's true. So when I tell my family that in the West, it's a big topic, and there's so much fear. Everyone that comes to our ceremony, that's the main thing in their mind, the fear about the safety of Iboga. For us, it's a bit strange because we don't see Iboga as dangerous. But that being said, this is where, in some cases, well, I think Ibogaine clinics have their places, because the problem is when people that are taking substances for a very long time, where their body are already very weak, come to the medicine, and what Iboga does it reduces all of your tolerance to these such substances. And if someone who's been addicted to, let's say heroin or something like this, then after a ceremony decides to take the same amount of heroin they were taking before the ceremony, then the tolerance being now back to before they were taking the drugs, then this is now where they can have issues with overdose. And then the problem with that is, on the data, it will show that the person passed away from Iboga, but that's not true. The person passed away from an overdose, and this data goes into the data of fatalities. But overall, if you have a look at the data of fatalities that are linked to Iboga or Ibogaine, there's always links to, very severe substance abuse, alcohol disorder, and other pre-existing conditions, you know. So it's very important to look at the data clearly rather than just assume that Iboga is the issue.
And also we have to remember that in Gabon, they have been using Iboga for thousands of years, and the babies who's born has also had a lot of Iboga during in the stomach. So this is something who's more, you know, they live more in tune with the nature, you know, in many ways. And people in the West usually don't do that. And there's a lot of abuse and a lot of hardship on the bodies to many people in the Western world. And that's also a different, but Iboga doesn't kill at all. It's, I agree with her in that. So, but we have to remember that we live a completely different life in the Western world compared to how they do, not only in Gabon, but in many countries in Africa. They live completely different.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add, so to what Kim was saying with like my experience in initiation is that they will often give other plants with Iboga. So sometimes they give something to help you remember. You know, when they're giving you high doses of Iboga, they want you to remember your experience. So there might be another plant in there that helps you remember, or, you know, settles your stomach, or, you know, they know like to be a Nima, like Audrey's mother and grandmother, they have to know like over 2,000 plants. And they have to understand what they all do. I think that's correct, right, Audrey? So there's an understanding of that. Were you going to answer, Audrey?
Yeah, well, no, you're correct. There is a lot more plants than Iboga. To be a Nima is not just Iboga, you know. Some ceremonies we do, we don't even use Iboga. We just use other plants and rituals and prayers. So there's a lot more to Bwiti than Iboga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to understand, that it's Iboga is a powerful plant. It's certainly, you know, up there at the top. But it's used with other plants. It's used in conjunction with music and fire and you know, all the torches and protection and singing and, you know, other plants. I mean, this is like a whole, there's more to it than just shoving Iboga in someone's mouth. So there's that, but also when we start blending Western medicine or like sort of modern medicine and traditional medicines, they don't always agree with one another. Iboga is working to, generally speaking, kick those other things out. Iboga is like pushing out everything else you're doing. You know, it's pushing out, it's cleansing the body, and so that can become a battle. Iboga gives us a massive serotonin boost. It increases our dopamine. So if we're on medications that increase or in some way affect the way serotonin works in our body, that's going to be contraindicated. We don't want to do that. People can go into serotonin syndrome, which is, you know, deadly. You know, we say medically it'd be seizure, coma, death. That's what that is. So if you don't know what medicines, whether they be pharmaceutical or natural, work with Iboga and what don't, you can kind of, that's where people get into trouble. Also, we have to remember Iboga is a purgative in a lot of ways, right? It's cleansing our body, it's shifting our electrolytes. And so we have to be aware of that. We have to be aware. So coming from that nursing background, we're always watching, you know, how are people doing? You know, is there confusion that shouldn't be there? Have they been eating and drinking well enough that we're supporting their body in with the medicine? So the body has limits. People sometimes they want so badly to do that spiritual experience, that spiritual, you know, whatever, right? Learning, they forget that their body also, you know, might need a bit of time, that they have to teach their body what these plants are again, you know, because it's been foreign for a lot of people. They haven't been living that way. They haven't been living with these types of plants, and the body's kind of freaking out a little bit, going, oh my God, what's happening to me right now? And so we give that time. And sometimes Iboga is working on the body. And that's why we don't have visions, right? Because there's other things going on. There's things that need to happen physically because the plant is working not just on our mind, but mind, body, soul. And sometimes the soul's not ready. And so if we try to force things into an experience that somebody wants, rather than allowing whatever is happening to unfold, that's when we get into trouble. When we have people that are like so wanting there to be a specific outcome that we forget to trust the plant and what it's doing. Right? So we have to, there's like an understanding that it's not about what you want. And that's probably what got you in trouble in the first place. Is you always seeking what you want. You know, this is what you need. This is what you need to look at. This is what you need to experience. And a lot of times, that's what gets us in trouble. As well, you know, there's a lot of mixing. There's a lot of Iboga, especially Ibogaine, and then 5-MeO. And I don't know if that's good. I think you have a plant that's doing one thing, and then you're adding another chemical doing another thing, and they're pulling people apart. And I have seen in people that have reached out to us that that's caused confusion. That's caused, you know, and I'm talking about really close together. That's caused a bit of a problem with people. They get pulled in two different directions, and then it's not always helpful for the mind or the spirit. So I think there's a rush. And I think there is a desire to give people an experience rather than to trust the medicine to do what it needs to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. And I didn't entirely introduce myself. I'm a marketing professional in the psychedelic space, and there's a lot of difficulty. And sometimes when I want to throw in the towel, that people are describing medicines as saviors, and also as like, this is what you're gonna get if you go to go do this very intense experience. And it's sometimes the ego gets involved and people want to, you know, do the hardest thing. It's also gentle eventually. Sometimes it has some cleaning up to do, something to be aware of is also that, you know, aside from the medicine or the plants that support us, as Michelle shared, there are contraindicated things, and Michelle and Patrick are wonderful resources for that because they walk both sides. So if you're listening in and thinking about this, it is a beautiful medicine, but the things that are new are all the pharmaceuticals, and that is where there can be danger. So that you can do, many of the folks here on this panel can support you with that, but I specifically know Patrick and Michelle can help you if you have medications you need to taper off of. The challenge is that there is also, and we may or may not be able to get entirely into this, but Iboga, it takes 10 years to grow an Iboga plant, and it is a slow plant. It takes time to develop. Sometimes people get really excited about what's being promised in the media, that I'll clean my heroin addiction up in 7 days. I will be clean of this old habit. I'll be done. I'll be completely, that's not how it works. It's not doing all the work for you. It just opens your eyes and opens your heart. And you know, I've also, Maud, I wanted to have a little bit of your perspective. Why do you think people are coming to Iboga as from like a therapeutic standpoint, since you're a therapist? Why do you think people are stating they're coming to the medicine right now? And also, what's your thought? And maybe they're not saying exactly why.
First of all, I just want to say slow, slow is fast, and fast, fast is slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you use time, you really get the good result. If you stress and want everything to happen at once, you will take a few steps back. That's just how it is. I think a lot of people coming to the medicine right now is some of them are coming because they hear that this will change your life. It will, but they also think they don't have to do the work. They think they can come to the medicine and the medicine like, wow, and the medicine do it for you. But I also think there's a lot of people who see that they maybe been in therapy, they maybe struggled for a long time, and they go and they talk and they talk and they can't, they in a way don't come to the root. And these plant medicines can, especially Iboga, I have actually not done any other plant medicine than Iboga ever. It's the only plant I've been working with of these kind of things. And that's the good thing with Iboga is can actually show you where you really need to work, where the root is, where you have to, so it's easy when you go back and do your therapy, because you will need therapy. You will need to work on what's coming up for you. But the medicine is saving you a few years in therapy, because you can go straight to the root in a way. It shows you where you have to start, where the problem is. And I think there's a lot of people who also understand that the medicine can help them. The Iboga can help them with that. So it's a way it's helping them, but also understanding themselves in a different way, seeing what, like I've been talking to many people, and of course over the years, but it's how should I say it? Really understand what we are doing to ourselves. Not only the way we are thinking, but the choices we make through our life, how much that impact us, and why do we take these decisions, these choices? Is because of family, because of friends, or because of TV, because of what we read, because of we see. But is it really us? And how much have we, in a way, put ourselves in the wrong direction just because we have to do what everybody is expecting from us? And Iboga can be very helpful for us to really learn to see ourselves and what we have done to ourselves over the years. And I think more and more people have heard this, and they see that Iboga can really help in many ways. So I think some people are coming because they think Iboga will do everything for them. That will never happen. But a lot of people is coming because they really want to do the work. They want to have some help. They maybe struggled for a long time, or they don't want to use 10 years in therapy, because Iboga can help you, so you save time on it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And Audrey, in your opinion, obviously I brought up a little bit that the plant itself grows slowly and needs to mature. There's also something to be aware of, if you could share, if you have this language, the different places that Iboga comes from, because there's the Iboga plant and there's the Vakanga, just for that awareness of folks, but also just the understanding of what it means to have this medicine, which doesn't seem to grow anywhere else very successfully other than Africa, around the world. I know people try to have attempted to grow it in Hawaii and some other places, but it likes its homeland. So if you could talk a little bit about sustainability and the relationship that you feel the Bwiti have with the plant itself, to kind of share that a little.
So yes, Iboga takes a very long time to grow. So minimum 10 years, 7 to 10 years, you'll start having some alkaloids in the plant. But for ceremonies, we use trees that are more around 20 years of age. So that takes a lot of time. And most of trees that age are going to be found in the wild. So we have some Iboga that we've planted around the village. But these trees are younger because obviously the older trees have been used for ceremonies. And because of this, there's a lot of poaching. So it's free for all. And there's a very high demand in the West on the black market for Iboga. And it's being poached, and it's becoming harder and harder to be found actually in the wild in Gabon. And people have to go and look for Iboga deeper and deeper in the forest. And Gabonese forest is very, very dense. It's trees growing on top of trees. So Iboga is becoming more expensive now for Gabonese people to get because the demand is so high. And that's why it's so important for us. And this is why we're planting as much Iboga as we can, you know. And the problem as well with poaching is the people poaching it, they have no consideration for the trees. So they just rip the whole tree out of the ground, leaving nothing. When there is a way to harvest Iboga in a way that's more sustainable by leaving the tree in and harvesting certain parts of the roots. So through our nonprofit, we're trying, you know, we're teaching the youth about these methods of harvesting. We're showing how to plant and care for Iboga as well. So that, you know, there is Iboga for Gabonese people, because now a lot of it is being exported either on the black market, but also legally for pharmaceuticals and to make Ibogaine. Because for Ibogaine, for one treatment, it takes many trees. So that's another thing with Ibogaine. It uses a lot of Iboga compared to what you would use in a ceremony. Even though I don't understand why Ibogaine is necessary, because Iboga is so strong. You know, if you try Iboga tree that's 20-year-old, it's very, very strong. So yeah, it's really important that people learn about that, because it's becoming a problem. And if we don't do anything, there's not going to be any more Iboga for even Gabonese people, or they won't be able to afford it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting quandary. There is for people brand new to the topic, there's also another plant called Vakanga that you can extract Ibogaine from. But from what I understand, and speaking to some folks that are in Africa, South Africa specifically, the experience of the Ibogaine is different. And the Iboga Ibogaine is, I understand you don't understand why we would take this apart, but the truth is control. It's 13
exactly.
hours almost to a T when you do Ibogaine, and it's putting it within a clinical model. It is attempting to make sure that we can turn the beds, and you know, I have my opinions, but I'll try to but
And regarding Vuakanga, again, that's another plant I am not familiar with. You know, we only work with Iboga, so that's what we know. So Vuakanga is something I've heard of since, you know, doing this advocating work. But there is a lot of debate around it. I've heard that there is alkaloid contents, Ibogaine in it, but I also know people who extract the alkaloids from Vuakanga, well, from Iboga, who have been testing Vuakanga extract, saying that the alkaloid is almost very, very, very low. So yeah, I'm not sure whether Vuakanga is even has a lot of the alkaloids that you would find in Iboga.
Yeah, there are different plants. They are
different.
You know, just like those that might be familiar with, you know, the other psychedelics that come from plants. If you've done enough ayahuasca and have felt the difference between the different using mimosa versus some of the other DMT plants, you're gonna have a different experience than you would with a different combination. So we kind of have to remember that these were living beings, and they were grown in certain places that, you know, depending if you're a wine drinker, this is the best way. It's not a great analogy, but you know, there's certain years that the grapes don't grow as well, and so you're not going to get as great of wine. But like the Iboga also needs consistency and support through its lifetime to produce a beautiful sort of cornucopia of the alkaloids. And so I really appreciate listening to all the voices of the awareness of the Bwiti culture, and also the awareness of the plant itself, because it gives us that sense of it's sacred. And we call these sacred medicines for a reason, and it's not just a marketing term. So you know, Is there any more that you can share a little bit about? All of you have been initiated and or completely involved in the Bwiti culture. If you could also share your Bwiti names, just for people's awareness that when you are initiated in the Bwiti, you are given a name. And I'd love for folks to share their names and what they mean to them, and also what they mean literally.
Yeah, so I have a few Bwiti names. So in our tradition, so the Feng is known for doing many initiations. So every time I get initiated, I get a new name. And for us, the name is the spirits, the main spirit that accompany us and help us do the work. So for me, my spirit is Kumun Jogo, and it's a spirit linked to abundance in a way, not physical abundance, but spiritual abundance, you could say.
Nice, beautiful. Maud, what's your Bwiti name? What is
You
it?
know what? Right now I have stepped down from the way I have been walking in Gabon.
Oh,
So I will take a completely new direction in Bwiti from now on. So right now, I have a lot of initiations and a lot of stuff over the 14 years, but right now I'm on my way to a completely new direction in Bwiti. So right now there is no name.
Maud. We got Maud. It's okay.
I have let go of that way. So it will be a new name, maybe before Christmas, who knows? But I'm taking a completely new direction in Bwiti. So
Oh,
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I will share that, by the way, there's many villages in the Bwiti. Bwiti is not one united, although it's a people, it's a tradition. There are many different takes on it. So sometimes people, especially people that are not part of a village, when they come to learn from the Bwiti, they may start with one community and then move to another just for various reasons. I hope yours was people. But
I'm choosing a completely new direction. I'm not with the direction I have been. I will go with a completely new direction from now on. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Michelle, I know your name, but I like you sharing the story and for everybody else too.
My name, my name is Yakita, which is a name given to mother of twins. I am a mother of twins, but it means mother of mother, mother of all. So is how it was described to me. And mother's been a common theme in my life, so it wasn't a surprise. It was actually something I very strongly resisted. I had my first child at 17, and you know, not knowing what when you go before you're on your way to have your first initiation, you're aware that part of that first ceremony you do, there will be a name for you. And of course, you ruminate and try to figure out what it will be. And I realized after that I tried to think of things that were mother-like, but not mother, like the ocean or earth, something to do with earth, So, but you can't deny what is there. And so the medicine was very patient with me and let me sit there all night until I just stated what it was in the end. And then I was just asked, what is it? It was daylight by that time. And I said, it's mother. It's always mother, is what I said. So you can't, it speaks to that, we can try to fight and argue with the medicine, but we won't win.
Yeah.
We won't win. And you know, I think I think that's one of the beautiful things about traditional cultures is that it brings awareness of to what, a lot of what our core is, a lot of what, we're here to do, a lot of what our gifts are. And we don't do that anymore in Western cultures. And so I think we become a bit directionless. These names are important because they help sort of give us focus. They help us understand ourselves better and understand our gifts. So, and so many people come to medicine spaces with the question of what is my purpose? So I think that that's super important. And I also wanted to say one of the most beautiful things about Iboga is it does not take our choice away. And that is why you have to do the work. Because if it took your choice away, if it just fixed you, it would disempower you. And Iboga is about empowerment. It's about teaching you how strong and powerful you are. And so it's never going to take your choice away. And people need to understand that. And that's one of the really hard things that people, when we tell people this, especially when people are coming for addiction, is we say, Iboga doesn't take your choice away. And they're like, what? You mean, I could still be addicted? I could relapse. And you're like, well, yeah.
Following around and tying your hands together.
Yeah. But if Iboga just took your choice away, then then it would be no different than doing anything else that you do to numb, to escape, to, all those are disempowering. So, but what it does do is teach you how to make better choices. And I think that is one of the most powerful things that Iboga does. And I don't think we spend enough time really understanding how powerful making a choice is.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. It's beautiful.
But the medicine is also the tradition, the Bwiti tradition, the medicine, everything is so grounding, It's so down to earth. It's just not like flying out there and having all this, spirit experience, what many people want. Iboga is really grounding you. And I think that's one of the best things with the medicine. It's really making you have your feet on the ground and connect with you again.
So you can make better choices, but it's not going to force your hand. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You can continue to do the same foolish things you were doing before if you want.
Well, Jessica, now that you've got a chance to hear all this, we chatted a little before, and I'd love for you to share what your opinion is, because you're coming from your own awareness of a Brazilian tradition that you were born into, but are sort of recovering for yourself, listening to these incredible women of initiated by Bwiti. Can you compare and contrast what you see as a difference between the Brazilian medicine holders versus what the Bwiti do?
Yeah, I think they're very different to start with, but I do think there are some similarities by listening to a lot of what Audrey has been sharing on how people relate to these medicines and how I often feel like they have been appropriated. And it's something that I even wrote in the comment there. I do feel like as long as the West world comes with this mentality of like trying to get something out of it for themselves from psychedelics and plant medicines without reciprocity and without understanding the relationship to these plants and their whole cultural context around it, then we are engaging with these medicines with a colonial and extractivist mindset, and that's very problematic. So this was actually one of the reasons why I thought, oh, this is a very enriching conversation, even for me, to learn more like, hey, how is it to have women that are working with Western medicine and with Iboga and bridging those cultures and trying to do this in an ethical way. I do see a lot of this work being done right now in Brazil with ayahuasca as well, because we have been having a lot of problems there also with basically a lot of people taking away, and there's not enough plant for everyone. And what is the impact that it has in the indigenous communities that are there? So to me, these are the most important points of conversations that we do see, although these are very different continents and different cultures, it is still the same patterns. Yeah. that our system perpetrates in many different ways around the world. I hope this answers, yeah, my side of the question.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I mean, much like Iboga is not the actual thing to be afraid of. It's the other things you've taken in. It's um, to be someone who has intentionally extracted herself from America. I live in Mexico. It's a bit of the Western mindset that is actually the challenge in incorporating medicine traditions from many different cultures. And I love that everyone is here today really wanting to listen and learn and understand where these this particular medicine comes from, because it's a very different experience. I'll just share that I have been supporting people to elevate their voices for 8 years around Iboga and Ibogaine, because and I didn't touch it until 3 years ago myself. It needs support, and it needs understanding of its value and beauty, but also that you don't know it until you meet it. And not everybody, it's not appropriate for everybody to meet. It's not a plant you have to do. Oh my gosh, you don't need to do it for sure. But you can, even within this conversation, understanding more about it, you can speak to it having never ingested it. It's a very, very generous spirit. And it called my name many years prior to ever ingesting it, and it's a taskmaster, this one, because boy, do I have a lot of these conversations about this plant. But it's so lovely. Thank you, everybody, for being here. There's space and time in the chat to share some questions for the panelists. If anybody would like to share a few things, I will be scanning for question marks. So we will have a little time also to give comments at the end. But if there's some questions for the panelists, please share them in the chat. And if you're not familiar with Zoom, if you just kind of hover your cursor down at the bottom of the screen, the information will pop up and let you be able to click the little chat that's for in. You'll be able to drop something in there in the chat.
Ken, I don't know if you have seen it, but I did already have some questions for myself while I was listening to everybody talking.
Please
Uh,
go ahead. While I scan, you go right ahead and ask the question, please.
I
Yeah.
do feel they might be relevant for other people. So those are two different questions, but just because I heard Michelle mention something about people not remembering the experience, and I was curious if having blackouts and not remembering the experience is something common with Iboga. And the other question that I had was how exactly the preparation and integration process is done when working with this plant medicine, because it does sound to me like quite an intense experience and confusing at times. And from my understanding, um, if you take it's part of your cultural context and you take it in community, your integration unfolds naturally in community, but we don't have that in the West either. So how is that provided for people for support?
Yeah. So when we serve medicine outside of Gabon, I'm not typically giving as much as an initiation dose, although it depends on the person. Dosing is highly variable. In our experience, some people just need a tiny bit of medicine and some people need more. There are certain indicators that, people who have Adderall addictions tend to eat a lot of medicine. But I think initiation is very different. And so I think I think that's an important thing to understand is medicine work outside of Gabon is different, just because you can't do all the things you can do outside of Gabon. Gabon and Iboga are interconnected. And so, we bring in all that we can, but obviously we're not in that jungle. And I think too, there's a lot that happens in an initiation. And so it can be overwhelming, and it takes a long time to unpack. Like for me, it took, there were things that, and you don't even know everything that's going on. There are things happening until you go back and then you get to witness an initiation from the other side and you're like, wow, all that happened. I didn't even notice. So for preparation, uh, that's why we have that's why we have we have a community, and that's what we've done. It was a very strong message from the medicine from us when we were in Gabon a few years ago to build community, which is difficult to do when our guests come from all over the world. So it's online because that's how, it seemed to be the best way to do it. I would love, to have that village sort of community in real life, but that's not sort of how people come to this medicines uh, for the time being anyway. But so we have a pretty large preparation component where we really talk about the important things of like being open, what is intention versus expectation. Um, you know, uh, there are big shifts that happen with Iboga in the way we can view the world, and that's not always easy to reincorporate back into your life. And so for us, it's also important then to have a lot of support on the back end. So we have an integration community. We put all our guests into you're there for at least a year, and we support people through that process, because sometimes people come back and they get into their life and the things that the medicine showed you that you were unaware of before are now very much in your field. And that can be destabilizing sometimes for people. Like they can feel a bit lost in that because they're like, oh my God, like I never noticed this before, and now it's all the time and I see it everywhere. And so so it's helping people through that. And of course, usually people feel great, but there can be those things. So we have that. That's why we have that. Yeah, I think that answers your question.
Yeah. There is some questions in the chat. Maria's curious if the Bwiti tribe uses TA, and which is a total alkaloids. For those that don't know what that means, it's an extraction from the Iboga plant so that it's put into a pill form. Tends to help with not having to vomit as much with the root or purge as much. But Maria would like to know that. And then also, do you feel like the measurements are based on weight or spiritual needs in the Bwiti?
Oh, no. So the total alkaloid is an extraction. So it's done with some very strong chemical. I forgot the name. But it's a cancer-causing chemical, and it's chemically extracted, and it's got all of the alkaloid of the plant, so it's more whole than Ibogaine. But no, we don't temper at all with the plant. All we do is we scrape the bark from the roots and we chop it up. And for us, the way we eat it during initiations is, so we mix it with other plants. So we have a blend. So it works with some other kind of plant that work together. And we wash it down with Iboga tea. So it's delicious.
Well,
It's very bitter.
interesting opinion you have.
And that's it. So we don't do that. So and also Bwiti isn't a tribe. I know a lot of people say the Bwiti tribe, but Bwiti is the tradition, so it's not a tribe. The tribes are the families or the villages, and there's many tribes. But Bwiti is the whole umbrella tradition. Within Bwiti, then there's the branches. So the branches are the different ways of practicing the tradition. So the main ones that you may have heard are Misoko, Disumba, Feng, which is mine. Within the branches, there's even sub-branches. And these are, again, variations in the way that the tradition is practiced. And then within the sub-branches, then you have the tribes or the families, the villages. So yeah, I think that's very important because people always mention the Bwiti tribe, but it's not a tribe. And in terms of the weight, Iboga, again, like I said earlier, is a spirit. So, I have seen people in ceremonies having half a teaspoon and going in a trance, because Iboga will do what it does, what it needs to do with you. And then I've seen other people or myself, for example, that when I started doing ceremonies and you know, I would want to feel the medicine, you know, so I would be eating until the medicine told me, listen, you can finish that whole bag, but you're not going to go where you want to go because you're here to do work today, you know. So then I understood that there's no point. I'm not going to keep eating because I'm wasting the medicine. And there's other time you just have a tiny pinch and you can be going into the spirit world, you know. So there isn't, we don't work with weight. We just work with intention.
And I don't think Ibogaine should be worked with weight either. I think there is a lot of overdosing people in clinics. And I think that's really
not only in clinics, in retreats.
Yeah,
It's a lot of overdosing, like completely. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, because people are dosing for an experience instead of trusting the medicine to be doing what it needs to be doing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's actually a question about Ibogaine versus Iboga from Stephanie. She asked, I have a question about TBI, traumatic brain injury recovery and healing with Ibogaine versus Iboga. What's your guys' thoughts on that or experience?
Well, it's helpful.
Well, Ibogaine versus Iboga. Which one?
I don't, well, with Ibogaine's and Iboga, so
Yeah.
you know, and you know, the thing is we don't, I think they've only studied maybe 13 of the other alkaloids in Iboga, and so some of them are great, some of them show great progress for Parkinson's and for traumatic brain injury and for MS because it's all inflammatory, neurological, and you know, yeah, it's just but then there's the spiritual component, and then there is the things that we need to experience as a human being, and Iboga is not going to take away our lessons either. So it's a complex issue. So yes, it can be really helpful for traumatic brain injury, for Parkinson's, for MS, but you know, you're working with the plant, you're working with the spirit, you're working with your spirit. So what are you going to guarantee?
I just want to say something that we also should remember is that here we come and we find this beautiful medicine in Africa who really can help us with a lot of our issues. And the second we do that, we think that it's our right to have the medicine, to grab it, like we had done with everything else on that continent. We find something, we just grab it and take it. And I think that is something we really should think about before we just continue this, like this can heal our issues in the West with drugs, with mental illness, with everything. Think about what we are doing again before we just take it as a, how do you say it in English? Our right to have it because we found something and now we want it.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very important to remember.
And if I can just add, you know, in Gabon, you know, the people will say Iboga is universal. So we want to share, you know, we want it to reach other places, but we don't want to be forgotten. We want to,
Of course,
you know, have a place at the table and in decision making. So I'm very grateful to be here today because, you know, too often we see conferences on psychedelics and the voices are not included, you know, our voices are not included. You know, we'll see a full Iboga panel, Ibogaine panel, and there's no one from Gabon there. So we're very happy to share, but we just want to be included because if it wasn't for the Bwiti, nobody would know about this plant. So I just want to plant a seed and advocate for that.
And I just want to say thank you to you because you're such an important voice from Gabon. In everything you say and write, it's something of the best who's online. You can read about it at all. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
I agree. I second that opinion.
That's bwitiroots.org for those that are wondering where to find her. We have another question from Dan. Has Iboga been effective for treating people with narcissistic trait behavior, extreme narcissism, psychopathy? I will share before diving in, I have a degree in psychology, so I'll just say there is no such thing as a way to treat a personality disorder that is beyond behavior modification. It's in there so early. Narcissistic trait behavior, that's up to the person whether or not they're willing to change. But I'm happy to hear what you guys know as well, but I can just say that the only hypothetical treatment for narcissistic personality disorder is to injure that person that at the time, usually between age 2 and 3, is to get back into that sort of fundamental injury and try to re-injure them, make them in that state, and then try to rebuild that person, which I don't know anybody who's done that successfully. So what do you think, ladies?
I think actually Iboga could make it worse. That's my opinion on it.
Why do you think that is?
Because when you have this narcissistic tendency, or what do you call it, the Iboga can show you sides that you actually just see them as more power, that you are great, like you are big. So I think actually it can do it worse if you are not really there and understand and really ready to do the work with the medicine and with therapy, like you talked about. So I think actually that can be not a very good combination.
Yeah. It is a powerful medicine, and
it
is.
is.
Yeah, and it does help you get into your agency 100%. Like that's people who didn't even, I've read studies, and there's another question here about a little bit about studies, but of people not having any awareness of any of what we've just talked about and going into an Iboga session, and like they're like, I'm speaking on my own behalf all of a sudden. Like I understand who I am, which is something I didn't have questions about. But you may have noticed, if you've poked around a little bit in this community, maybe looking at some other retreats, there's a funny word brought up, soul, that is very often discussed, but maybe I can say for myself, I didn't know I had one. Met her, she's great. I'm gonna go hang out with her again. She's so lovely. I try to spend as much time as possible. Could we talk a little bit about that element of Iboga? I mean, it's sort of nebulous, but it seems you'll see the name in a lot of the titles, and it might be a foreign concept to you too. So if we could talk a little bit about the soul in relation to Iboga.
I think Audrey should go first.
Yeah, you know, for us, everything is spiritual before it's physical, so it manifests. No, okay, can you wait 1 second? Everything, that's my other kid, sorry. So everything happens in the spirit world, and then it manifests on the physical world. So this is why for us ceremony is very important. That's where we connect with that spiritual side of us, of the world, and we can make things happen for us in the physical world, you know, when that connection is strong. So for Iboga is the key that opens the door to the spirit world, and you can see your own soul. You can see the soul of people that have died, people, plant spirit. Okay, I heard, Lara, I'm coming. Okay. I'm coming. So I can see why you would meet your soul, and it happens often. People don't realize they have a soul, or maybe if a fragment of their soul has left, they can see this fragment, bring it back to their soul, and become whole again. So that's very common, for us.
Thank you. Any other commentary on soul? There are some more questions, and I want to make sure we have a chance to.
I just want to say one thing is that we have, if people were more aware about their souls, they would have a much better life, because we are like, it's us, and we have our inner child, and we have our soul. So if those three were working together instead of very separate, that will help us a lot. And that's where Iboga is so very helpful in that work. because it's very important.
Yeah. And I think when you realize your connection, when you meet
Yeah.
yourself, you
Yeah.
tend to be kinder to yourself. You're like, oh my God, did I just speak to myself like that? My soul was listening.
Mhm.
I said that? Oh, that was nasty. So, you know, it's awareness, right? It's awareness of the more of what you are.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a question for you, Audrey, and I think all of you can share a little bit about this too. Audrey, how do you see the future of these plant spirits now that a huge wave of extraction, is opening doors to these states of consciousness? Can clinical approaches like working with Ibogaine help restore a sense of Iboga's sacredness, or would it be better to avoid extracting using Ibogaine altogether?
Yeah, I think there is, I think we're at a crossroad now, and there is two possible scenarios. The first one being a repeat of the past through neo-colonialism,
Mhm.
extraction of the plant and appropriation and yeah, eventually maybe like monopolization from pharmaceuticals and things like that, which would be very sad because then the wisdom that comes from Bwiti would be forgotten. And, you know, when I see how Ibogaine is used, I do believe there is a place for Ibogaine because people who are dealing with very severe addictions, it's better for them to be in a clinic where, you know, they can be tested and searched maybe on entry and so on. So, you know, we wouldn't do this in a ceremony. But it's missing out on the whole power of the plant, because when you use Iboga in a ceremony, there is a lot more. And addiction is only a symptom. It's like curing a symptom, but there
Mm.
is so much more it can bring to someone's life, you know? So I think the other pathway is if we, you know, like I said, include witty voices at the table and work on a win-win a scenario where everybody wins. You know, there is a way that the Bwiti can win, people in Gabon can win. There is a way that people who need this medicine can also win, so that everybody is happy. So I think we need to really focus on this idea of, is everyone winning? You know, is someone being exploited, or is there a balance between what's being taken and what's being given? So what's very, very important is reciprocity, because without the Bwiti, like I said, Iboga wouldn't be known. And you know, Bwiti is at risk of being lost. People are leaving the villages. Less people are practicing this tradition. But, you know, through models like what we're doing at Bwiti Roots, which is, you know, all the revenue we earn from ceremonies and initiation goes back to the community. And then we're improving village life, making it easier for people to live in the villages. We're supporting the local school, which, you know, there used to be hundreds of students and now there's only 30 students in the school because teachers don't want to work there anymore, for example. So we're supporting things like this to show people that actually there's true value in living in the village and practicing this tradition. They don't realize over there that people are so interested in Iboga and even Bwiti outside in the West. They don't realize it. They want to live like they see on TV, you know, like they want to move to Europe and they want to move to the cities. But, you know, it's important to show that actually this traditional way is so rich. It's such a richness. So I feel like we're at a crossroad, and yeah, it could go two ways, but I'm very positive and I feel that, yeah, the traditional way can be revived, you know?
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. And this last question is perfect, because then I'd love for you all to share how people can get in contact with you and reconnect after this call. Again, this was recorded, so it'll be up on YouTube. Anyone who sent a request to be part of this will be emailed that link. But the last question is for people interested in finding a Bwiti village to go to and learn from the source. How can you make that connection? Do any of the Nimas or leaders speak English?
like in our village, so when people come to the village, so either me or my father are there, and then we can translate, but the people there don't speak English, but they speak in sign language, so even without us you can communicate, you know, they will communicate what they need to tell you, but we there supporting and making sure that things are clear.
Yeah. Amazing. And there's also folks that will help you to go to the villages, and not this year, but usually Michelle and Patrick take folks back to Gabon. Maud, maybe you can support that. I'm sure Audrey can. Can everybody share the ways to get in contact after this call with you guys? It'll also be in the YouTube description, but all the way across the board, how do we get in contact with you?
So for me, our organization is called Bwiti Roots. I think it's easy to remember. Our website is bwitiroots.org, and if you search Bwiti Roots on Instagram, we have a page where we share like a lot of information from our perspective and our work. And yeah, you can email us or message us through the social media, and our email is info@bwitiroots.org.
Gracias.
Yeah.
And Maud, go ahead. Sorry, I don't know who just spoke.
For me, it's my email address, who's maud.lundestad@gmail.com, or my WhatsApp number. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we won't share your WhatsApp. Well recorded just for your own sake. But definitely that email is great, and I'll have that in the show notes. And Michelle, how can folks get a hold of you and Soul Reflections?
So our website is soulreflections.net. Our email is info@soulreflections.net. And then on Facebook and Instagram. So Facebook is Soul Reflections Iboga, and Instagram Soul Reflections Iboga Community and Retreats.
Fantastic, fantastic. And Jessica, if you can just, for those that don't know you already, if you can share more about Women on Psychedelics.
Yeah, I think most people maybe found the event through our platform, so you can just check out womenonpsychedelics.com, or Instagram is also Women on Psychedelics, and yeah, you can find more information about me there as well. But we are a community of women running this educational platform.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, ladies. And because I'm looking at the chat, there's so many thank yous, beautiful, so inspiring. This has just been a really wonderful conversation. I'm so grateful for everyone's time and energy, even just listening. It gives us all this, like, for me, I can say it just makes that feeling so rich to know that so many people are interested in hearing both from the women's voices, but also about this beautiful plant. And there will be, like I said, a recording of this, and also there's going to be a magazine that has asked to summarize this talk, so that'll be coming out too. I'll send an email about that, which is exciting. Folks really want to hear about this. They want to hear what these traditional things really feel like, and what the experience is, because we crave it so much. We crave the ritual. We crave this connection. So thank you for connecting, everyone. Incredible. I'd like to respect everyone's time. So we're right at the top of the hour. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Is there any final statements from the panelists?
Thank you.
Thank you. It's really nice to see like people here that I know that have come to the village, that have come to ceremony or coming to future ceremony. So thank you so much. It means the world.
Oh, fantastic. And unmute yourself,
Thank
those that are listening, and say thank you and goodbye. And
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.